Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Hey, welcome to this episode of the No Plus Show. As always, Scott Carson, excited to be here with you today. Today's episode, I want to talk about a low balance note case study. This is actually a deal that came across my desk. Oh, I guess it would have been Tuesday of last week, Monday, Tuesday of last week. And no, it would have been Thursday of last week, actually. So, um, kind of something that's relatively new on the desk. Now, I get a list of notes in from a California hedge fund. It actually had about 20 notes in Texas, some in Houston, some in the Dallas area, some down in San Antonio, and one here in Austin. And I was like, oh, let's look at this real fast. And so I wanted to go through this deal because it's a small balance note on a higher valued property. Okay. But if when I looked at it, I almost initially kicked it to the curb and didn't look at it because it's like, oh, what I saw online. Okay. I'll go to this in a second, but this is something that you guys, I bring it up because sometimes we get in the habit of looking at specific things and we miss little like diamonds. Okay. Note investing. I make the joke that we kind of live on crumbs. We live on the crumbs of the big funds, right? They don't like these lower balance stuff. Sometimes it's uglier stuff. They're in the bigger pools, the cleaner stuff, and that's fine. But there's plenty of money to be made in the crumbs, and this is a crumb story. Okay, this is kind of a crumb story, not a crummy story, but a crumb story. And so I was sitting here. I got the list and reached out for pricing, and they came back with pricing. The fund did. Oh, it was late Friday, like Friday right before the end of the day. I was like, oh, okay, well maybe I'll drive by it on Saturday. Texas is playing at 3 o'clock. I want to be home to watch that game, their first SEC game. Yes, hook 'em horns. And so I was sitting here Saturday and I was like, well, I thought I'd drive down to San Antonio, look at a couple of properties because they were nice looking properties. When I looked at this asset, it was a little uglier property. Okay. So I said, well, it's in Austin. What's the heck? What's it going to hurt? It's a hour trip, basically 30 minutes down South Austin, 30 minutes back. It actually was about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So I got another taping with another Austin asset even further south. Okay. We won't go into that one, but this one I thought was the most valuable one to go to as a teaching aspect for you guys out there. And it's always good. If you have something in your neighborhood, go out, drive by it. Not everything online is going to reflect the true deal. And you may pick up things that you miss along the way by just guarding, just evaluating yourself by what's on Trulia or Google or Zillow, stuff like that. In a lot of cases, people miss on these note deals. They're not on PropStream or things like that. So I said, okay, let's go take a look. So this asset, I Googled the address and this is what it looks like. I'm like, oh, it looks like it could use some work. An ugly ass truck. It's in an okay neighborhood. It's in a par neighborhood. Okay. I mean, it's an older neighborhood off of 290 here in town, which is basically midway, not all the way south to the airport. Now, I live north Austin. It's on the kind of the west side. Sorry, it's on the east side of Austin, not too far from the toll road on the loop. But I was like, when I looked at the neighborhood, it was an okay neighborhood. Now, I'll give you some ideas. This is when I drove by the property, this is what it looked like. Okay, same truck is still there, right? Needs some work. The garage, you can't really see on this photo because of the SUV there, but it was kind of looked like it was kind of kicked in a little bit. It wasn't closing all the way. It looked like the garage was full of junk. I'm like, oh, okay, well. So here's the numbers. When I got the numbers, when I started looking at it, here's what I came across. So it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,100 square foot house. So it's a little bit bigger than the neighborhood houses. It was built in 1974. Okay. It's owner occupied. It's a first lien. Okay. Unpaid balance. Okay, unpaid principal balance is at 49,362. The payoff is at 50,238, so they're about 1,000 behind. Okay, the AVM, the automated valuation model, the online value that the bank had on their spreadsheet was 499. Now, when I saw that, I knew they were smoking some of that California weed. There's no way this property is worth $499. I don't know who told them that. Not even an ARV of $499 because the average homes around the area are in that 300,000 range. Okay, 280 to 320 may be the best, but no way at $499, especially not in its current condition. Okay, now it's got a 3.75% interest rate that matures in 2033, so another 9 years on the mortgage, and the P&I payment is $531 a month. The taxes are about $126 a month, is what the spreadsheet said. And I think it was a little bit off. Okay, I think it's because the taxes, I think, on this is a little bit higher. I forgot to check taxes, but anyway. So it's behind. The guy's behind by a few months. Okay, his next due is February 2024. He did make a payment in March that went to January's payment, but he's more behind. So his payoff is a little bit higher than 50. Okay, 6 months behind. The lender has had an attorney notice of intent to foreclose has been issued. The bank wants roughly 80% of the legal balances, which is $40,190, is what they think it is of their number. I'm like, okay. So basically, it's a $10,000 discount, give or take a few bucks. Now, it's actually a little bit more than that because there's a few months more behind. But it's a Texas foreclosure here in Texas. Remember, we do things fast. Fast foreclosures, fast highways, fast executions. If the notice of intent has already been issued, then really the foreclosure could take place in the next 30 days. Not this coming Tuesday. Maybe it could this Tuesday. That's tomorrow, because the first Tuesday of the month is when the foreclosures take place. Maybe they're closing by tomorrow. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it goes the next month. I don't know. Based on what the bank told me, it didn't give me the date of foreclosure on this thing yet. So I would assume it's going to be next month based on them sending it out. Okay. What else did we find? Well, if it was to foreclose in 90 days, you make basically $10,000 in 90 days, give or take a little bit. Give it time for the check to be issued. If it isn't going to go to foreclosure next, on Tuesday, it's next month. So maybe you're making it in 60 days. But it's basically, if you're making $10,000 on a $40,000 investment, that's a 25% return on investment. I don't know why I have an A in there. Big clunky sausage fingers. Now, if you annualize that, that's 100% annual ROI. That's pretty stinking good for 40 grand, right? Like I said, I drove by it on Saturday and I had to stop and take a photo because guess what was in the front yard? A listing. That's right. A realtor sign was shoved in the front yard. And I immediately, as I turned around, took a few photos. I avoided the big black party that was going on down the street. I guess somebody had died because everybody was wearing black. And so I picked up the phone and called the agent. I didn't call her. I texted her, hey, I'm calling about the property at blank, blank, blank. I didn't get a response back on Saturday. I was like, okay. So I looked online and lo and behold, it's listed online on Zillow, which I didn't see on Friday, which is weird because I looked at this thing on Friday and Thursday. I didn't see anything listing. Well, lo and behold, magically it popped up Saturday afternoon and see that it had been listed basically for 11 days. Okay. And it said a pending offer at 220. It wasn't listed at 220. It said pending. I was like, oh, this is interesting. So maybe it's going to sell fast. Maybe it would, because it needs some work. I could just tell, if it hadn't been updated in 10, 15 years, okay, it needs some work on the inside. Maybe it's worth 280, maybe it's worth 300 after repair, but 220 is a bit of a stretch, even at that, based on what I expect the property needs inside. Okay. But, maybe it's immaculate inside. I mean, it is about 500 square feet higher than any other property in the area. The guy's done some additions to it. I don't know if those have been, permitted improvements. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. I don't know. I mean, if it tells you the neighborhood, every home had bars on the walls, okay, or on the windows. So it's not the greatest of neighborhoods, but still, it's an up and coming neighborhood. It could be a good little rental property. I think rents are somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000 a month in that neck of the woods. Okay. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, like I said, 2,000 plus square foot. So I was like, okay, great. So I texted her, no response back while I was driving on Saturday. I'm like, okay. So then I reached out to her Sunday. I'm sitting outside here Sunday. I'm putting on a turkey breast on the barbecue to smoke it. I'm like, oh, I haven't heard back from that agent. Well, maybe she was busy Saturday getting ready for the UT game. It was Sunday. I said, it's after church. Let me text her. So I texted her again, said, hey, I'm an investor, cash buyer. I'm just calling to get some information, basically, is one thing. Maybe if I can get her to respond back, I see that it's pending. Maybe I'd ask her, do you need a backup offering? She calls me immediately back. Oh, hi, you're calling a blank property. I was like, yes, I am. She's like, yeah, we have that one is pending. I'm like, pending? Oh, really? Wow, it's been not been on the market long. She's like, no. But I do have another one in Bastrop. I was like, okay, but can you tell me about this one? Is it, back to this one? When is it? Do you know when it's going to close? Oh, it's going to close quickly. Okay, is it 2 weeks? just a bit of an idea because I can follow back up with you on this one if it closes or doesn't close. No, it's going to close quickly. It's a cash offering. We expect this thing to close very quickly in 2 weeks. It's like, oh, great. Okay, great. Well, send me the information on the other property in Bastrop. I'll take a look at that. Okay. About 30 minutes later, she sends me a text message, sends me the address. I'm like, it's a normal listing in Bastrop, but that's okay. We'll worry about that one later. But when I found out this was a fast closing, basically a 2-week closing or less, I got even more excited because you think about that. If you're making 10K in 30 days, then now I'm going to go through a foreclosure, not have to go to bidding, not wait for filing, but if they actually pay you off, get the full payoff, and it's 10K or more in 30 days, that's a pretty good day, right? That's 25% return there on your money. But in 30 days, that means it's annualized a return of 300%. Okay. That's a pretty good day. Who wouldn't do that deal, right? Everybody says, oh, I would do that deal all day long. You would, but would you pull a trigger? If you had the 45 grand. Well, Scott, you said 40 grand. Yeah, but you got to expect some things. Some people wouldn't do this deal because they're afraid they'd end up taking the property back at auction, and then they'd be responsible for the rehab. Okay. Now, there are other strategies involved with this. Yes, you could foreclose. I don't know if you got to bring another $1,000 to the table to the attorney. Maybe the attorney's fees are already paid in full. That's great. Take it to foreclosure, hope it sells at auction. My opening bid would be the full legal payoff. Okay. If it is worth $299 or more, I'm going to max that out and try to get somebody better. I bet somebody would pay more than that at auction. That's fine. I get my 50 grand or whatever, and then the borrower would get anything else in the second space. Could I work out with a borrower? Could I approach the borrower and say, hey, instead of foreclosing, let's give you cash for keys. You're looking to obviously sell it at 220. You owe about 50 grand, means you're making about 170. Take your commissions out of there. Can I give you 100 grand cash to walk? Why would I do that? Well, because if I wanted to own the property and I think it could be worth 300, it would make sense to pay that borrower 100. So I'm coming to the table with 150 roughly, 50 for the note purchase, 100 to the borrower to walk. Okay. 100 to the borrower to walk. I mean, that would, be done. Don't worry about listing the property. We'll take it off, remove it, that kind of stuff like that. I could partner with a borrower. Some people have partnered with borrowers in distress to, okay, let's partner together. We'll fix it up, pay off the mortgage, pay off my rehab costs, and split the profits after closing. And you can still live here. I wouldn't necessarily like to do that, but some people have done that before. Okay, great. Could you, depending on how old the borrower is, could you do a reverse mortgage? Yeah, you could do a reverse mortgage and help them if they're old enough to cash out of the property, move from. But I'd be willing to bet the fact that they're listing it for the 220 when the comps in the area are higher, if it's a good, because is they're wanting to cash out of this deal and move on. They don't have the money to repair it, trying to get as much as they can and move on. And that's the route. So that's the thing to keep in mind there. Now, the moral of the story that I want you guys to take away from this is it pays to drive by assets. Sometimes it does. I mean, yes, if you're in an area and you're investing in other parts of the country, you can't always drive by the assets. I get it. I mean, my buddy Don, he flew up to Michigan to buy a tax deed. He drove by about probably 50 to 100 properties in Detroit until he settled them. That's fine. It's worth it. Okay. What else was I doing on a Saturday? Well, I got all that mileage written off when I drove to South Austin. Right off my taxes. I got to know the neighborhood. I was like, oh, is this a good property? Great. Is it not a good property? Okay. I saw that there was a listing sign out there. May I have a lead on another property? Yeah, I may have another lead on another property. Great. But the important thing is don't let specific things, like if I lived in California, I wouldn't try to buy this property and try to do that real fast because you're way out of state. I don't think doing an out of state rehab is smart if you've never done it before. Okay. Would it make sense though if it is going to be a fast foreclosure that you expect it would still make sense? Yeah, it could. You just got to understand your level. Would I bring in somebody else's money on the deal? Probably not. Okay. Probably not. Yeah. Could you go and give a guy $5 grand on a $40,000 investment? And if it does it in 30 days and you split the profits? Yeah, you could do that. It's getting kind of skinny, but there's still some feasibility to that. I think honestly, this is the best deal is just taking down this with your own money and then, buying it at 40 and either selling it at auction at 50 and some change or, trying to work with a borrower if you've got the extra capital. Because here's one thing. If the borrower did a deed in lieu to you and you owned the property at that point, you could go and get a hard money loan and cash them out that way. All right. Cash them out that way or cash them out and have his money get paid after you sell the property. That's one thing you could do. Say, I'll give you 100 grand. I'll give you $5 grand for moving right now. Let's get you out. Let me finance this with hard money. After I get a deed in lieu from you, it's REO at that point. You get a hard money lender to fund you the rehab costs, and then you pay the investor his profit after it's listed and sold. Now, of course, if you want to hold on to the asset, that's a different story. Then you got to refinance them out. But there's some different ways to make this deal work. You know what I mean, ladies and gentlemen? Evaluate every exit strategy. Look for signs. I mean, it's not, like I said, it's not the greatest neighborhoods, but not by far the worst one. There's a house two actually houses over that needs some work. It needs some more work in that neck of the woods. It looks like it's vacant. It's not listed. I just looked. But the online photos do not do that property justice. Somebody has not mowed the lawn in probably 6 months on that, and it looks like it's vacant. So there's some opportunity. Yes, this is an older part of Austin, but there are some opportunities in these older houses. People are, getting older. They're moving on. They're passing away. They're leaving the kids who can't fix them up. There's some opportunity there if you know what you're looking for. And while this isn't our stereotypical note deal, it's still a note deal that kind of makes sense if you're the right person and the right party for it. Okay. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below in the chat roll. I'll be glad to answer those questions, or feel free to book a call with me at talkwithscottcarson.com. That's talkwithscottcarson.com. I'm always glad to help answer questions, go through things. If you've got a deal that you'd like to have me review, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be glad to do it with you via Zoom, break it down, even making a podcast episode if you're looking for. So hopefully you learned something from this episode, but go out, take some action, buddy, and we look forward to seeing the top. Bye, everybody.